3 decades ago, Subaru changed the game with the original Outback, and now it has done it again with a redesign that is more like reinvention, a bold new design, cutting-edge tech, and for the first time, a hybrid powertrain. The ultimate family car has just got better than ever. Transformed, but with signature original charm. The all-new 2026 Subaru Outback disrupts the auto market. So, without further ado, let's take a closer look. Hybrid is here. The Outback is generally considered one of the most well-rounded vehicles around, but in the last couple of years it's been criticized for the lack of an electrified version, one that would improve fuel economy, and it's finally happening. The 2026 Subaru Outback is bringing a hybrid version to the market, and it features a completely new system based on a familiar 2.5-liter Boxer engine that works in Atkinson's cycle in this case. The engine itself has been detuned and puts out 158 horsepower, but on the other hand, the electric motor is quite capable with 118 horsepower, so the combined output goes up to 207 horsepower. The benefit of the electric motor is probably even bigger in terms of torque, considering that the electric motor brings an additional 200 pound-feet to the table. In any case, we count on strong performance, which would put this particular version somewhere between the base naturally aspirated and available turbocharged model. But its biggest strength will be, of course, fuel efficiency, considering that we expect this particular version to be good for about 40 miles per gallon combined. Moreover, this kind of fuel efficiency, along with the Outback's 18.5-gallon fuel tank, suggests that the new electrified version will have a range of over 700 miles, which sounds amazing. Like a typical Subaru, the Outback Hybrid will feature standard all-wheel drive. Unlike some other hybrids, it won't adopt a so-called electric drive all-wheel drive system, where the opposite axle gets power from an additional electric motor, and there is no classic differential and a drive shaft. This is a little bit different hybrid, and despite the electrification, there's a typical Subaru symmetrical all-wheel drive with ideal mass distribution and excellent off-road potential, which will once again be one of its key selling points. Exterior design. The 2026 Subaru Outback receives a full redesign, so there's a lot going on in terms of aesthetics. If you're familiar with what Subaru typically does, you know that in most cases this isn't a company that's willing to make radical changes. Evolution is Subaru's key word, but not this time. This time, the Japanese automakers redesigned its legendary wagon in a pretty radical way. So far, the thing with the Outback has been quite interesting. Some call it an SUV, others consider it a wagon. Indeed, previous generations featured a typical wagon silhouette, but at the same time featured high ground clearance, all-wheel drive, and other features that typically come with SUVs. With the new generation, it seems it's going to be much easier to classify it because it obviously leans toward SUVs. Just take a look at the rear part of the vehicle, more precisely the area after the C-pillar. So far, the Outback used to have a rounded design in this area, a typical wagon rear end. But now, things are way more angular with the upright stance of all components, including the tailgate. All that provides a classic SUV-like shape, similar to what Forester used to look like a couple of decades ago. When you look at the vehicle from certain angles, it certainly looks like an SUV. Not only that the rear end is more upright, but the whole car looks bolder. The edges are sharper, the lines are more angular, and you can easily notice larger roof rails and more aggressive wheel design, which all put the Outback closer to compact SUVs than wagons. The differences compared to the previous generation are so significant that it takes a few extra moments until you realize long overhangs typical for wagons, which reveal the Outback's true nature. Of course, a redesign wouldn't be complete without the new front-end design. Therefore, the Outback brings a fresh new face, the brand's new design language that's characterized by narrow headlights and their triple beam design. While the grille brings a more aggressive shape along with a bolder new pattern. We already mentioned that the Outback still features typically long overhangs, but still, it brings a new front bumper design, which doesn't just look more aggressive, but it's also designed with an integrated skid plate, in the way that it improves the approach angle. So much important features of every vehicle with off-road pretensions, and with 8.7 inches of ground clearance, it's obvious what the Outback has them. Interior. The 2026 Subaru Outback also brings a completely new interior design, and the changes also seem pretty radical. Of course, there's still a typical Subaru approach to cabin design in the way that practicality is once again the top priority. But style plays an important role this time, and the first thing you'll notice is the new dashboard, dominated by a couple of large screens. One of them is a massive portrait-style touchscreen, which is responsible for pretty much everything, including climate controls. The other one is a fully digital instrument cluster, which comes as a bit of a surprise considering that the recently redesigned Forester came with an old-school, fully analog unit. But even though the cabin is new, it hasn't lost any of its traditional values. The Outback is still a super comfy car with plenty of passenger space in both rows. Furthermore, the build quality is pretty impressive, even though the materials may not be the finest around. Then there's the matter of visibility, as the new Outback once again features massive glass surfaces that ensure excellent vision in all directions, which is something that can't be said for most modern crossovers. Finally, there's the cargo area, with nearly 35 cubic feet behind the second row and over 75 cubic feet of total volume, which puts the Outback ahead of most other wagons and compact SUVs. All that is complemented by lots of small storage compartments and other practical design solutions that make this wagon one of the ultimate family cars you can buy on today's market. Performance and ride quality. We already talked about the new hybrid version, but that won't be the only powertrain on offer. The new generation also carries on with two familiar gas-only powertrains. Once again, base models come equipped with a 2.5-liter naturally aspirated flat 4 with around 180 horsepower, with performance that won't blow minds but does the job fairly well. For anyone looking for a peppy powertrain, the choice is clear. Not the base engine, not the hybrid, but the optional 2.4-liter Turbo 4 with 260 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque. The optional Turbo 4 is way more capable than the base unit, but it's also much thirstier, considering that it returns around 25 miles per gallon combined. The base engine, for reference, returns around 30 miles per gallon combined, which is pretty impressive for a wagon of this size, with such high ground clearance and standard all-wheel drive. But Subaru has always been much more than just engines. Driving a model like Outback is a pretty unique experience because even though it features some of the highest ground clearances among unibody SUVs, and that would be 8.7 inches in the base variant, its on-road manners are impressive. One of the reasons is the all-wheel drive system, of course, which ensures excellent grip in all conditions. The other one is the way Subarus are constructed, with the Boxer engine positioned way below typical engines, which ensures a significantly lower center of gravity compared to similar vehicles. This allowed Subaru engineers to install a softer suspension setup, and as a result, the Outback has the unique capability of both absorbing road imperfections with ease and dealing with corners with no body roll. Overall, the ride quality is impressive, and that's the Outback's key quality. But with such a ground clearance, it's clear that the off-road potential is great. First, there is the all-wheel drive system, one of the best in the business, which is complemented by a couple of electronics-based systems, including the well-known X mode, which optimizes traction in tricky situations and sends the right amount of torque to every wheel it needs to. But that's not all. Once again, the Outback is available in the Wilderness trim, an off-road version that brings further off-road updates, such as the ground clearance that goes all the way up to 9.3 inches, all-terrain tires, pricing, and which one to buy. The 2026 Subaru Outback is a pretty amazing car that remains quite affordable. The base model, equipped with a naturally aspirated flat 4, starts at around $30,000, while the new hybrid powertrain would cost you a few thousand extra. The Turbo 4 would cost you at least $40,000, but that's because it's reserved for upper trims only. Speaking of trim levels, Subaru sticks to the traditional monikers. The offer starts with the base trim, while Premium, Limited, and Touring are there to gradually add more standard equipment and make this wagon, or SUV if you please, more luxurious and more capable. Finally, the aforementioned Wilderness trim is the most off-road capable in the range, although we have to say that no matter which version you pick, you may count on pretty respectable off-road performance, considering the standard all-wheel drive and the aforementioned ground clearance. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.